Hey everybody, we're talking about is monogamy natural and the science behind monogamy today. I'm Dr. Diane, board certified sexologist and founder of mylibidodoc.com. Now, this is an important conversation because there's a lot of us in the sex, the libido, the relationship world that are putting a lot of energy into looking at what makes relationships successful and what makes relationships fail. There is definitely a movement of people opening up their relationship and forming open relationships as a way to stay together with their partner. However, that is not the only way. I'm a huge fan of hot and modern monogamy. We're going to talk about what that means. But we're going to give some of the history here around, hey, is monogamy natural? Why did this get formed? Why do we pair bond? So we're going to look at that. And I'm saying this as a huge fan of monogamy and as a huge promoter to hot, passionate, long-term monogamous relationships. So interestingly enough, a study on 2,545 mammal species found that social monogamy, where the couple, the two parties in the mammal species, get together and form a stable pair bond, meaning they are mating for life. Mating for life only happens in 3 to 5% of these species. Now, what is really interesting and what is most important is what is driving this and why does it work or why does it not work? So in humans, one of the things that we see that may be related to whether people do better in a monogamous relationship, whether it's a healthier thing for them or not, may be related to the amount of vasopressin receptors we have in our brain. Vasopressin is a hormone that is involved in bonding. And the more receptors we have in our brain for this means the more impact this hormone can make on us when we are released. So if we have a higher amount of vasopressin receptors, when vasopressin is released, which stimulates pair bonding, if we have a high amount of receptors, it has a higher impact. And there can be genetic reasons why somebody has more or less receptors for vasopressin, leading to theories that vasopressin and the amount of vasopressin that can impact our body uniquely due to genetic differences may be a huge part of what actually brings us together and bonds us and keeps us in monogamous relationships, or makes it so that monogamy is maybe not the right thing for that person or couple. So let's take a brief step back into history. So we see that in history, in Greek and Roman times, there was a social norm. There was a movement of people to monogamy for stability. There was actually laws and rules on this. And so that was legal, and that was a legal system. And then the elites were basically practicing non-monogamy. So it was really in like ancient cultures, this is for stability. And that was a legal thing around that pair bonding, that movement towards monogamy for stability. Now, before 1 AD, we also see that monogamy was common. People were still having extramarital affairs. You can find that in some of the writings. But again, it was preached monogamy for stability. Another reason why monogamy was talked about during these times was to reduce male competition, to stabilize property inheritance, and to really keep the structure of the government stable. Right? To prevent males from fighting and competing, right? So that was a huge part of monogamy. When Christianity was birthed, then we have more monogamy moving into the West. Even people like Confucius talks about liking monogamy for the creation of social order. So you can see that for monogamy for a long period of time, and this is what I call traditional monogamy, and I differentiate between traditional versus hot and modern monogamy. And in traditional monogamy, when you look at the why, you see stability, you see reducing competition, you see government structure and order. And it was all about creating this for stability, structure, and order. Even in the Industrial Revolution, even in conversations around that, there was still a movement of the nuclear family towards creating the stability of the household, strengthening the stability of the household. And monogamous relationships were really about stability. They were talked about for love. They were talked about for duty. None of the things that I have looked up around monogamy traditionally talks about passion, talks about desire, talks about like keeping that hotness alive, talks about really utilizing some of that sexual fire to keep that bond strong, to keep that passion alive, and to fuel creativity. One of the things I've noticed so much in my life and work is my ability for my brain to be creative really is correlates with my sexual energy, right? And I see this for so many people. When that sexual energy is strong and potent, there oftentimes is more excitement and passion, not just in the bedroom, but in life, for the world. So this is the difference between traditional monogamy, which was about duty, love, stability, structure. Hot and modern monogamy, which is what I teach about in my libido clubs. You can find my libido clubs if you go to mylibidodoc.com. And in my libido clubs, I teach you how to keep all the good parts of traditional monogamy, meaning the stableness, the structure, all these things that lay a really great foundation for life, for success, for family, all these things, but how to actually bring in the conversation of passion, of novelty, of desire, of hot sex. And so it's really saying, hey, for so long in traditional monogamy, we've created this foundation which has its benefits, but we have left out this really key component of a healthy relationship, the passion, that hotness, right? And so it's the same thing. We see the same thing in health. In like health, we could do the same thing. We could work on our diet all day long, and we could say, okay, well, I'm committing to this healthy diet, and it's going to be these organic foods, and it's going to be enough protein, and I'm going to drink enough water. But then we sit on our butt and we don't move and we don't exercise all day. And it's like, not that foundation was bad, but if we don't have movement, if we don't have this other thing, we're going to be missing out really on the totality of health. And same thing for traditional monogamy, is that there's so much good in like the structure, the stability, all of that. But so many monogamous relationships experience boredom, and experience this level of just like apathetic acceptance versus saying, hey, the structure is great, but how do we keep the passion alive, right? So we talked a little bit about the oxytocin component of things. Also, we do see, of course, culture, right? Religion, law, media, romantic, comedies, all of it idealize monogamy. And so a lot of people are driven to this, but they lose the excitement. And so modern monogamy is going to emphasize love, partnership, and communication, right, around sex and around all these other things. So my belief why it does not work, why traditional monogamy has not worked for so many people, is that, hey, it really has emphasized so much structure, but it has left out this other thing. So it's not that it's wrong. It's just it's not emphasizing the totality of what it really means to help people thrive in their relationships. So definitely download my yes, no, maybe checklist at mysexdoc.com. So if you go to mysexdoc.com, you'll find a free checklist where you can download to get ideas about how to bring more novelty back into your relationship, and tools to sit down with your partner and talk to them about, hey, we've never tried this. Could this be hot? Could this be cool? Could this be, a new thing we can add to our relationship? So it kind of gets you out of that rut of that sexual script and that boredom, and helps to bring passion back in. So that's at mysexdoc.com. Please do subscribe, as I talk so much about how to support yourself in these relationships, how to communicate better, how to ask for what you want, how to have better orgasms, how to last longer, and so much more. I'll see you soon. Ciao for now.